Hi, my name is Jim. This is a story on how I became a proud American. In 1956, President Eisenhower established Sister Cities International. It was a program to have cities in the U.S. twin or pair with cities in the rest of the world to establish exchanges between the peoples and the cities. They can be artistic exchanges or student exchanges or whatever. So the whole purpose of this was that he thought that people, one-to-one, could understand each other, and it might help foster peace in the world. That was something very important to Eisenhower. So I'm from New Brunswick, New Jersey. We have 4 sister cities, one in Debrecen, Hungary, one in Limerick, Ireland, and we have 2 in Japan, Surrogate, Japan, and Fukui, Japan. Fukui is on the west coast. It's a city of about 250,000 people. It was destroyed during the war by bombers. But I spent, about 18 years ago, I spent a week there as a chaperone with the 10 8th graders who were spending their time there. One of the great things about Sister City programs is you usually get to have a homestay. So I was staying in a Japanese home for the whole week I was there. I wasn't staying in a hotel. They were responsible to feed me in the morning and get me to my kids during the day. I spend the day with the kids. I come back home and spend the night there. Typical Japanese home, middle-class home, rice paper walls with walls that slide back and forth, tatami mats on the floor, no furniture. And the family was very typical also, and the other families I've been to. There was a mother and father, and 2 children. There was a young boy and a high school girl, and the grandparents, the mother's parents lived there with them. So I was there for a couple of days, and at one point they asked me to come back and said the grandmother, who was bedridden, wanted to meet me. So I came in the back I was led in the back of the building, and I met the grandmother. Nobody spoke English, so I sort of held her hand and said hello, and she said something to me in Japanese. She smiled, and it was just a nice little time. So the day before we left, they threw a party for me. Now, the owner of the house owned a chain of sushi bars. So all this food was brought in. His brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, there were about 20 people at this party, and we had a great time. We were just drinking sake and drinking beer and eating all this great food. Now, in Japan, the place of honor at a table is on the long edge, not on the end. So I was sitting on one, I was not sitting, I was kneeling on the floor on one side of the table, and the grandfather was on the other side. And he didn't say anything. He ate the food with us, but we were just having a good time. So when the party was almost over, he called his granddaughter over to sit next to him to translate. He said he has something to tell me. He said that during the war, the Second World War, he had been a soldier in the army, and he had been told, never get captured. If you get captured by the Americans, they will eat you alive. And on one of the islands in the South Pacific, I didn't quite catch the island, the Americans invaded, and he and 2 of his buddies were knocked out and injured by a bomb. So he couldn't defend themselves, and they were captured. He expected to die. He said that, to his surprise, he was brought to a field hospital. He was treated for his injuries, his wounds, and his buddies were treated for their wounds. When they recovered, they were put in a prisoner of war camp. They were fed. They weren't the subject of food. They were fed well. And after the war, he was brought back to Japan. And he sits there and he says, if it had not been for the kindness of the American soldiers and the American doctors, I would not be here, and this family would not be here. And then he said that in his years since the war, he's never had a chance to talk to or meet another American. And he wanted to tell me, thank you. I didn't know what to say. I was starting to cry. I was so proud of the fact that American soldiers had done this. And this was in the 90s that I had this happen. And, you know, since then we've had Abu Ghraib and we had Guantanamo. And when I hear about those things, I know it can be done differently. And when it is done differently, this international feeling can really help. The other thing that happened was the next day, his daughter came to me and said that he had never spoken about his time in the Army. That this story about being captured and being healed by the American doctors was something that the family did not know anything about. So I'm thinking that, you know, he was there, he saw me be kind to his wife, and he had a chance to observe me for a few days in his house. And I guess he felt that I was worthy of having this story told. It was very, very gratifying. Thank you.